The sun streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across my room, where colorful streamers danced gently in the breeze. I could still smell the sweet scent of the birthday cake that my mother had baked, a rich vanilla layered with creamy frosting. Today was supposed to be a celebration of me, a day filled with laughter and joy. I had envisioned my friends gathered around, each of them wearing party hats, their faces lit up with excitement. But as I stepped into the living room, a jarring reality shattered my anticipation. Instead of my birthday decorations, I was greeted by a sea of caps and gowns, my sister Sophie's graduation party in full swing. My heart sank, a wave of confusion washing over me. "Mia, happy birthday," my mother called out, her voice cheerful yet strained as she hurried past me, adjusting a banner that read "Congratulations, Sophie." I forced a smile, feeling the weight of betrayal settle in my chest. This was my day, and yet everyone seemed to be caught up in celebrating my sister's achievements instead. I glanced around, catching snippets of laughter and applause, but none of it felt like it belonged to me. The vibrant balloons that adorned the room felt like a mockery of my special day, and I clenched my fists, trying to suppress the anger bubbling within me. As I made my way to the kitchen, I overheard my family laughing, their voices a cacophony of joy that sharply contrasted with the tightening knot in my stomach. I could hear Sophie recounting her accomplishments, her voice filled with pride. I felt invisible, a ghost in my own home. It was like a cruel joke, and I was the punchline. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the inevitable awkwardness that would follow as I faced my family, desperate to reclaim at least a fragment of my birthday amidst the chaos. The clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation filled the dining room, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing inside me. My family sat around the table, their laughter ringing like distant chimes, each chuckle a reminder of the warmth I longed to feel but couldn't grasp. I watched my sister Sophie, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she recounted tales of her graduation, each word a dagger to my heart. The table, adorned with a birthday cake that felt more like a prop than a celebration, seemed to mock my presence. I shifted in my chair, the wood creaking beneath me, betraying my discomfort as I attempted to mask my frustration. As the conversation flowed, I felt like an outsider in a world I once belonged to. I glanced at the family photos lining the walls, snapshots of happier times when I felt included. Each frame told a story of joy, yet none captured the essence of my own life. My mind wandered back to our childhood, when laughter was shared freely, and I wasn't just a shadow lurking in the background. Those memories felt like a distant echo now, fading with each passing moment as I struggled to find my voice amidst the noise. "Mia, what do you think?" my mother suddenly asked, breaking my reverie. I looked up, startled to find all eyes on me. The silence that followed was deafening, as I realized my absence from the conversation had gone unnoticed until now. It sounds great, Mom," I replied, forcing a smile that felt foreign on my lips. My voice trembled slightly, betraying my inner turmoil. They resumed their chatter, unbothered by my fleeting presence, and I sank back into my thoughts, the weight of dismissal pressing heavily on my chest. The moment hung in the air, a fragile thread of tension woven into the fabric of our gathering. I glanced around the table, searching for a glimmer of acknowledgement, but all I found was Sophie basking in the spotlight, her triumph overshadowing my special day. I felt the ache of sadness deepen, a reminder of my own uncelebrated existence, and I clenched my fists under the table, my nails digging into my palms as I fought to hold back the flood of emotions threatening to spill over. There was a storm brewing within me, and I knew it was time to confront the truth, to demand the recognition I so desperately craved. My heart raced at the thought, but fear held me back, a chain binding me to my seat as the chaos of the dinner continued around me. The atmosphere in the house was stifling, a mix of laughter and muffled conversations echoing through the walls. I paced my room, the familiar scents of lavender and wood polish turning into a suffocating blanket around me. Each step felt heavy as I recalled the decorations that had been hastily draped around the living room, bright banners celebrating Sophie's graduation instead of my birthday. The vibrant colors mocked me, a stark contrast to the grim realization settling in my stomach. I bit my lip, feeling a swell of anger build within me. How could they do this? How could my family hijack my special day without a single thought for me? I glanced at the mirror, my reflection showing a mixture of frustration and betrayal. The birthday cake sat untouched in the kitchen, its icing glistening under the fluorescent lights, a cruel reminder of what was meant to be a joyful celebration. I thought back to the moments I had spent planning my birthday, the excitement bubbling within me as I envisioned the happiness that should have filled the air. Instead, I had become a mere spectator in my own life, my significance reduced to a background character in someone else's narrative. Downstairs, the laughter grew louder, the sound twisting like a knife in my gut. I could hear Sophie's voice, bright and vibrant, as she basked in the attention she craved. The anger bubbled over, and I marched toward the staircase, each step echoing my determination. As I reached the bottom, I caught a glimpse of my mother, absorbed in the festivities, her smile wide as she clinked glasses with relatives. My mind raced with scenarios, each one more damning than the last. Did she even realize how deeply this hurt me? My heart raced as I stepped into the living room. The bright decorations blurred as I fought against the wave of emotions threatening to crash over me. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, my fists clenching by my sides. I was ready to confront them, to demand acknowledgement of my presence and worth. But would my voice break through the cacophony of their celebration? I hesitated, caught between the desire to reclaim my day and the fear of being dismissed once again. As I stood there, half hidden in the shadows, I realized how much I wanted to be heard. I didn't want to be the forgotten sibling, the one who was always overshadowed. My breaths came quicker, each inhale fueling my resolve. I would speak up, I would make them understand. But first, I needed to gather my thoughts and steel my heart for the confrontation that was about to erupt. The din of laughter and loud music enveloped the house, a cacophony that clashed with my spiraling thoughts. The colorful lights of the party danced across the walls, casting erratic shadows that mirrored the chaos inside me. I stood near the entrance, gripping the doorframe as if it were my last anchor to sanity. The smell of burnt pizza wafted through the air, mixing with the sweetness of the cake meant to celebrate my birthday, yet all I could feel was the bitterness of betrayal. I listened as my family mingled, their laughter slicing through the tension like a knife. Each cheerful exchange felt like a slap to my face, a reminder of how they had hijacked my special day for Sophie's graduation. I could see her at the center of it all, beaming with pride as she accepted congratulations from our relatives. The sight twisted something deep within me, igniting a storm of anger and disbelief. How could they celebrate her success while ignoring my feelings? I felt my fists clench, nails digging into my palms as I bit back the urge to shout, to demand acknowledgement in the face of my own neglect. As the night wore on, I noticed the vibe shifting. A sudden knock echoed through the chaos, followed by stern voices shouting from outside. My heart raced as I glanced at the door, the laughter halting abruptly. The sound of police sirens pierced through the music, and the flashing lights cast a surreal glow across the room. The party atmosphere evaporated instantly, replaced by a palpable tension that felt suffocating. "What's happening?" I whispered to Jake, who had just stepped beside me, his expression mirroring my shock. He shook his head, his eyes wide with disbelief. The realization that the police were here because of us sent a wave of embarrassment crashing over me. "It sounds like they're here for noise complaints. Can you believe it?" he murmured, worry etched on his face. I felt the weight of humiliation settle on my shoulders. My family, who had turned my birthday into a chaotic spectacle, had now drawn the attention of law enforcement. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor and escape the spotlight that had become so unbearably bright. I could see Sophie's face, once glowing with joy, now drained of color as the reality of our situation sank in. The officers moved inside, their authoritative presence commanding silence. I watched as my family scrambled to explain, to shift the narrative away from the chaos they had created. The whole scene felt surreal, a twisted reflection of the night's events. I couldn't help but wonder if this was karma catching up with them, but the thought brought me no comfort. Instead, I felt a swell of confusion and despair, a deep yearning for resolution amidst this escalating chaos. My birthday, which had been meant to celebrate me, had morphed into a nightmare, and the shock of it all left me reeling as I silently grappled with the consequences of their actions and my own feelings of abandonment. The air in my room felt electric as Jake and I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a chaotic array of papers and empty coffee mugs. The harsh glow of the desk lamp illuminated our anxious faces, casting long shadows that seemed to mimic the weight of our conversation. I could smell the faint remnants of his cologne mixed with the earthy aroma of the coffee we had been gulping down to fuel our late-night brainstorming session. "So what's the plan?" Jake asked, his brow furrowed with concern as he leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. I could see the tension in his jaw, a reflection of my own turmoil. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs as I gathered my thoughts. The silence hung heavy between us, punctuated only by the distant laughter from the living room, where my family continued their celebration without me. "I need to talk to my mom. No, I have to. I can't let this go on any longer," I replied, my voice wavering slightly. The thought of confronting her again sent a shiver down my spine, but I knew it was necessary. Memories of past conversations flooded my mind, filled with dismissals and platitudes that had only exacerbated my feelings of invisibility. Jake nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of encouragement and apprehension. "You're right, but you have to approach it carefully. It can't just be an explosion of emotions. You need to express how you feel without pushing her away further, or she might just shut down." I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me, tempered by a wave of desperation. But how do I even start? It's like every time I try to explain myself, it just turns into a fight. I don't want to lose her again, but I can't keep pretending that everything is fine. Jake leaned back, contemplating my words. Maybe start with the birthday party. Explain how it felt to be overlooked, how the memories they shared felt like a reminder of your absence. Use I statements so it doesn't come off as an attack. Make it personal, I nodded, his advice resonating. Yet the thought of laying my heart bare filled me with dread. What if my mother responded the way she always did, by deflecting or minimizing my feelings? The knot in my stomach tightened at the thought. What if it doesn't work? What if I just end up feeling worse? I whispered, the fear creeping back into my voice. Jake reached out, placing his hand on mine, a small gesture that provided a comfort I desperately needed. You have to try, Mia. Even if it doesn't go as planned, you'll know you stood up for yourself. That's what matters. With his words echoing in my mind, I realized that this was about more than just a conversation. It was about claiming my voice in a family that had often silenced me. Jake's presence bolstered my resolve, giving me the strength to face the uncertainty ahead. Okay, I'll do it. I'll talk to her. But I'll need you there just in case. Always, he said, squeezing my hand tighter. As we sat in the dim light, the chaos of the living room faded away, replaced by a growing determination within me. I was ready to confront the shadows that had loomed over my family for too long, one careful word at a time. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I felt a flicker of hope amidst the fear. Maybe, just maybe, this time I could find a way back to my family without losing myself in the process. The living room was a battlefield, a stark contrast to the warmth it usually exuded. Shadows danced on the walls, flickering from the overhead lights, illuminating the tense faces of my family gathered around. The air was thick with unspoken words, a heavy silence pressing down on us like a weight that refused to lift. I stood at the center, heart racing and palms clammy, feeling the heat of their gazes boring into me. This was my moment, the culmination of years of hurt that had simmered beneath the surface, ready to erupt. Taking a deep breath, I felt the familiar scent of the lavender candles we often lit during family gatherings, now a bittersweet reminder of all the times I had tried to maintain peace. I need to talk to you all, I began, my voice trembling slightly but firm. Sophie rolled her eyes, and my mother's dismissive expression sent a jolt of frustration through me. I pressed on, fueled by the determination that had ignited within me during those sleepless nights of reflection. I felt invisible, left out of moments that should include me. Do you even realize how much that hurts? The room went still, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall, each tick echoing my heartbeat. My mother's face twisted in shock, and I could see the gears turning in her mind, searching for a defensive retort. Mia, it's not like that. You know how busy we are, she replied, her voice rising defensively. But I was done with the excuses. No, it isn't that simple. I want to be seen, to be acknowledged. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, my hands balling into fists. I recalled all the times I had swallowed my feelings for the sake of harmony, the moments I had chosen silence over truth. My silence was never consent, I shouted, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. The emotions I had kept locked away for so long surged forth, and I could see the impact of my words landing heavily on my family. Sophie's smug smile faltered, and my mother flinched as if struck. The realization of my pain was written all over their faces, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this confrontation would finally shatter the walls that had kept us apart for too long. As the tension hung thick in the air, I felt a shift within me. I had unleashed my truth, and now it was out there, raw and unfiltered. The room remained silent, a charged space where I had finally found my voice. Whatever their response, I was ready to face it, knowing I had taken the first step toward healing. This was no longer just about my birthday. This was about reclaiming my place in our family's narrative, a narrative that I was determined to rewrite. After the confrontation with my family, I found myself in a whirlwind of thoughts, the chaos of emotions still swirling inside me. The dim light of my room felt heavy, almost suffocating, as I sat on the edge of my bed, processing what had just happened. The echoes of my family's laughter now felt like distant thunder, a reminder of the bonds that had been frayed rather than strengthened. I needed to gather my thoughts, to make sense of the confusion that had taken root in my heart. I picked up a pen and a blank notebook, the crisp pages inviting yet daunting. The sensation of the smooth paper beneath my fingers sparked a flicker of resolve. I began writing down everything I felt, every ounce of frustration and disappointment spilling onto the pages. My handwriting was messy, reflecting my inner turmoil, but I didn't care. Each word was a confession, a cathartic release of the weight I had been carrying for so long. I wrote about my desire for validation and how the family dynamics had left me feeling like a shadow in my own life. As I scribbled, memories danced in my mind, times when I had felt loved and cherished, moments that now seemed like distant fantasies. I remembered family vacations where laughter filled the air, the warmth of hugs, and the joy of shared experiences. But those memories clashed with the reality I face now, and I felt a sharp pang of regret. Would I ever reclaim that sense of belonging? In the midst of my reflections, I felt a surge of determination. I would not let this be the end. I envisioned a plan, one that would allow me to confront my family again, not with anger, but with the intention to heal. I would approach them with honesty, sharing how their actions had impacted me deeply. But this time, I wouldn't just seek acknowledgement, I would demand respect for my feelings. I took a deep breath, imagining the conversation unfolding, preparing for the potential backlash, but also for the possibility of understanding. The thought of standing up for myself filled me with both excitement and dread. I had been silent for too long, allowing my family's dynamics to dictate my worth. It was time to redefine my narrative. I would not be a ghost anymore. I would make my presence known, even if it meant facing painful truths. With each line I wrote, I felt a little lighter, as if I was shedding the weight of silence that had bound me. My heart raced with anticipation and fear, but I was ready to take the steps necessary to reclaim my story. It was time to confront the past and perhaps pave the way for a more authentic future with my family. The atmosphere in the living room crackled with an electric energy as I stepped into the room, the remnants of the birthday decorations still clinging to the walls like ghosts of a celebration that never truly belonged to me. My family was gathered, their faces painted with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, the tension palpable in the air. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing the urgency of the moment. As I stood there, I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the cake that had been meant for my celebration. The frosting gleamed under the warm lights, a stark contrast to the turmoil bubbling within me. Today was supposed to be about me, and I want my birthday back, I declared, my voice stronger than I felt. The silence that followed was deafening, punctured only by the faint sound of the clock ticking, each second dragging on like a weight on my chest. Sophie shifted uncomfortably, her expression a mix of confusion and defiance. "Mia, it's just a party. You don't have to make this about you." Her words were like a slap, igniting a fire in my belly. I stepped closer, my fists clenched at my sides, the heat of anger surging through me. But it is about me. I've spent my whole life being sidelined for everyone else's moments. No more. Mom's eyes darted between us, her brows furrowing as she tried to mediate, her own insecurities bubbling to the surface. "Let's just celebrate together, can't we?" But her plea fell flat against the wall of resentment I had built. I could see the hurt in my family's eyes, but I was done being the invisible one. I had to fight for my place, not just on this day, but in the fabric of our family. With a shaky exhale, I continued, "I will not be reduced to a punchline in someone else's story. Today is my birthday, and I deserve to be seen." As I spoke, I felt the tension begin to shift. The anger and pain I had bottled up for so long finally found their voice, and with each word I felt lighter, freer. The room shifted, the weight of my truth hanging in the air, demanding acknowledgement. As the words settled, I watched as the realization dawned on my family. The walls of misunderstanding began to crack, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this confrontation was the beginning of healing, a chance to reclaim my narrative. I took a step back, my heart racing but filled with a sense of determination. I could see my mother's eyes soften, and the tension in the room shifted from confrontation to contemplation. Maybe, just maybe, I could finally celebrate my birthday my way. The moment hung in the balance, a quiet anticipation filling the space as we all faced one another, each of us holding our breath, waiting for the next step in this fragile dance of family dynamics. I had carved my space into our story, and as I stood there, I knew I was ready to embrace whatever came next. The atmosphere in the living room shifted dramatically after our confrontation, a mixture of tentative hope and lingering tension hanging in the air like a thick fog. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a warm glow over the remnants of the birthday decorations that had been overshadowed by chaos. I could still smell the faint scent of the cake that had once promised joy, now a bittersweet reminder of the emotional storm we had just weathered. As we sat together, the silence felt both heavy and comforting, a shared acknowledgement of the pain we had all endured. My heart raced with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation, wondering if this moment would lead to genuine healing or if it would spiral back into old patterns of avoidance. I glanced at my mother, her eyes reflecting a vulnerability I had seldom seen, and my siblings who were quietly processing the weight of my words. "I'm sorry, Mia," my mother finally spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't realize how much my actions affected you. I thought I was doing what was best for our family, but I see now that it came at your expense." Her admission sent a wave of relief coursing through me, but it was tinged with the lingering ache of past betrayals. I wanted to believe her, to trust that we could rebuild the connections that had frayed over the years. Sophie, my sister, reached out and squeezed my hand, her gesture a silent promise of solidarity. I never meant to make you feel invisible. I just wanted to shine on my day, but I see now how that overshadowed you. I wish I had been more considerate. Her words were like balm on the wounds that had festered between us, and I felt the tension in my chest begin to ease. Perhaps we were finally on the path to understanding each other. As we shared stories and laughter, the air felt lighter, the shadows of our past gradually lifting. Each moment spent together felt like a step toward repairing the fractures in our family. I realized that healing wouldn't happen overnight, but this was a start, a fragile yet hopeful beginning. I looked around at the faces of my family, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of belonging wash over me. I knew there would still be challenges to face, but we were ready to confront them together, armed with honesty and a renewed commitment to one another. As the evening drew to a close, I felt a flicker of joy igniting within me, a warmth that had been absent for far too long. We gathered around the table, the remnants of my birthday cake sitting in front of us like a symbol of the journey we had embarked on. Together, we blew out the candles, not just on the cake, but on the shadows of our past, embracing the light of our new beginnings with open hearts. As I stood in the soft glow of the evening light streaming through my window, I couldn't help but reflect on the tumultuous journey that had led me to this moment of newfound clarity and connection. The air was fragrant with the lingering scent of lavender, a reminder of the calm that had settled over my once chaotic home. My family and I had learned to navigate the complexities of our relationships, transforming misunderstandings into opportunities for growth. I felt the warmth of acceptance enveloping me, a stark contrast to the isolation I had once experienced. In the days that followed our confrontation, I noticed subtle changes